in 50 years' time, we're going to look at death as optional and aging as optional. If you bet against technology, you will fail.
Is there any particular wildest enhancement that you have in mind that you think will be possible in the next 5 years?
The idea of obesity will no longer exist, right? We will not have obese people in our society. Human enhancement is going to be the largest economic driver in human history. My goal is to enhance human performance, which is a world in which superhumans exist.
Aron D'Souza, thank you so much for joining me on the show. You are the president and founder of Enhanced that is rewriting the dynamic of the sport as we know it. You have already broke the world record when it comes to swimming, and you are anticipating and preparing big event for 2026 in Las Vegas. So I'd like to dive into all things Enhanced Games, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me on your show.
I'd like to cut straight to the chase and would like to get your understanding of what do you think are the things that we can enhance, and whether it is possible to enhance focus, memory, and reaction time the same way we are used to enhancing our strength and speed, and what's your thinking behind that approach, especially taking it into basically the parallel with what you are doing with Enhanced Games?
Yeah, I think that the reality is that we already have a very mature industry of cosmetic enhancement. It's a multi-billion-dollar global industry. It's considered a class of the practicing of medicine, and has been more or less perfected. And so, if you're in Los Angeles or Miami or Palm Beach or many other cities of the world, you will see that people are routinely cosmetically enhanced. Yet, we do not have a industry of, say, neurological enhancement. It seems to be frowned down upon. We don't have an industry of strength enhancement, and that's what the Enhanced Games promises to bring to reality. Not just saying that we are going to have a sporting event, but we're going to create whole new classes of medicine. And why shouldn't a banker at Goldman Sachs be able to go to his doctor and say, "I want to be smarter and better at my keyboard. Can you give me some medication to do that?" Just as a an actress might be able to go to her doctor and say, "I want to look cosmetically better. Give me surgical or pharmacological interventions for non-therapeutic reasons." And I think the end conclusion of this is that we can enhance everything about our lives. We can be faster, we can be stronger, we can be smarter, we can be younger for longer. And I always say the goal of the Enhanced Games is not to put on a sporting event, but it's to create literal superhumans. And I, of course, know that this is a podcast, but if your viewers who are watching on video can see there's a portrait of President Barack Obama just as Superman behind me. And our world today is deeply influenced by science fiction. Like, for example, AI was science fiction just 10 years ago, and now it's one of the largest industries in the world. Jules Verne wrote the first work of science fiction in 1859. It's called A Journey to the Moon. And in 110 years, in just 110 years, really just in two human lifetimes, it went from a batshit crazy idea all the way to being a scientific reality. 110 years. HAL 9000, the talking computer, takes about 50 years to get to Alexa. The Jetsons with the robot vacuum cleaner takes about 50 years to get um, to a Roomba. And in the same way, I look to X-Men and Marvel comic books and say, why can't we have superpowers? And I think it's actually just a market structure reason. The pharmaceutical industry is not geared towards developing enhancements, and they're geared towards developing therapies for disease. And actually, the enhanced games will change that concept completely.
And like, how do you think of the efforts, for example, people like Brian Johnson, who tries to basically just put all the effort of what he does to extend the lifespan and health span versus just optimizing health versus like looking at it from the performance standpoint.
Well, Brian is a good friend of mine. I actually am going to talk to him in a few hours' time. Um, and we share very similar aims. His goal is to enhance longevity. My goal is to enhance human performance. Um, and I think both lead to the same thing, which is a world in which superhumans exist. And of course, superhumans would be immortal. And I think through the mixture of pharmacological interventions, surgical interventions, plus things like brain-computer interfaces and AI and CRISPR gene editing, we're in 50 years' time, we're going to look at death as optional and aging as optional. And Brian and I both believe that aging is a disease that we can treat, cure, and eventually solve.
And is there any particular wildest enhancement that you have in mind that you think will be possible in the next 5 years? Because you talked about that how fast things evolve, and I couldn't agree more that the environment that we live in today is extremely, extremely fast paced. So, what do you think will be some of the things that 5 years from now we will deem as this is normal, this is reality that we maybe don't even think of at this point?
Yeah, I think of cognitive enhancements as being something that's going to be the most mainstream. The highest paid people as a category are knowledge workers. And so if knowledge workers can increase their financial output by working more productively, particularly when the comparison or the competition is not between knowledge workers, but between knowledge workers as a whole and artificial intelligence, I think there's going to be a very large market for that. And right now we have sort of an underground market of stimulants, illegally prescribed, or over-the-counter things like nicotine or caffeine. But imagine if the global multi-trillion dollar pharmaceutical industry specifically worked to develop compounds to make us neurologically more capable. And then that was demonstrated with superhuman performances at the enhanced games. You take a kid or an adult, let's say, who's an average person, you give them some neurological enhancements, and suddenly they're solving a Rubik's cube in 10 seconds. Um, it's sort of like the Bradley Cooper film Limitless, right? If there was a drug that could allow us to reach our unlimited mental capacity, well, I think in a world of competition with the smartest machines, that's not going to become something that is optional, but a necessity.
So you basically are looking at the enhanced games not just purely from the like fitness sports standpoint, right? Let's make us run faster, swim better, etc. But also like embedding this cognitive performance as key part of the puzzle. So we someone can become the best chess player in the world by being enhanced with some substances.
Exactly. And so if you think of the our greatest superheroes, like Superman himself, he's not just physically stronger, he is more emotionally aware and has greater cognitive capabilities than a normal human being. And that's what makes him superhuman. And I think that is a necessary thing that we're going to have to look at in our society. And I know when I talk like this, people think, "Oh, Aaron, you're just talking about pure science fiction." But I go back to that point. AI was science fiction just 10 years ago. And if you had the foresight and had invested in NVIDIA or Tesla or OpenAI back then, you'd be one of the richest individuals in the world. And you only have to look to the future. And this is the thing. You, the, the greatest investment thesis of all time is just to bet on technology. If you bet against technology, you will fail. Look at the companies in the 90s who said that, the internet was just too complicated. It was a wild west. Well, they're dead. The companies in the 2000s that bet against social media, they're dead. And the companies that are now betting against artificial intelligence or unable to adapt to artificial intelligence, they will perish too. And here we see what I believe will be the most important technological revolution of all time, which is increasing human capacity. So we spend, life is effectively in three acts. From 0 to about 25 years old, we are children, we are in training and we are in preparation. From 25 to about 55, we're at our peak working capabilities, and then 55 plus is decline. And so, really, we only have about 30 years of productive economic activity in our entire lives. And so, every year that we can extend that by has a compound effect. So, it's not just like sort of a 3.3% increase, it's probably like a 5 to 10% increase on our net overall lifetime contribution to society. So, imagine if we could add 5 more productive years to our peak capacity. Well, we're looking at then like doubling of overall productivity in our society. And what could that do for us? Well, in a world of artificial intelligence and lower energy costs driven by nuclear power, we could have virtually unlimited resources, right? And this is why I, at the end of the day, am always an optimist, right? There have always been sort of the Malthusians out there who say that there aren't enough resources, there are too many people, but that the Malthusians always get proven wrong because technology steps in and develops huge new opportunities. 20 years ago, we would have had to sat in a soundproof studio and have probably flown from other parts of the world to have this conversation. It would have cost tens of thousands of dollars, and now you can do this for a $50 a month subscription to Riverside.
Right, sitting on our couch or chair.
Yeah,
That's how fast it's evolving. I love that. You mentioned that your goal is not really to put on an event like the one that you would like to do in Las Vegas next
we
year,
are
but
doing
I
next that we are doing right. This
yeah,
isn't
yeah, of course,
yeah,
but like
journalists.
it.
Yeah, journalists always sort of talk about this in this sort of hypothetical. Oh, you might break a world record, you might sign athletes. This may be happening. No, this is happening, right? This is a very serious project, and I always underline the confidence we have in our ability to deliver.
And I have no doubts about that. I think it's a great marketing tool how to get spotlight to what you are doing. But from what you are describing, I sense that the grander vision lies somewhere else, and that you would like to have a lot broader impact in terms of how we are gonna be going about this in the future. So I just wanted to ask you, what is that grand vision that where you would like to get to? What role do you play? What role do you see Enhanced Games playing in the future besides, putting on a great show?
Oh, I believe we can make one of the most important impacts to hu human civilization ever. So far, there have been 9 ages of mankind. And let me see if I can get these right. The Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Middle Ages, the Age of Enlightenment, the Age of Industrialization, and in the 20th century, the Atomic, Space, and Information Ages, 9 ages. Um, to say that we live in the information age sounds weak. It's like PC on every desk, the information superhighway. It's very Bill Gates 1980s. And so then, what is the next age of mankind going to be? What is the dominant thesis of cultural organization going to be in the next century? And I think there are only 2 options. If we act passively, it's going to be the artificial age, an age where the machines, the artificial intelligence becomes superior to men, men become inferior and therefore irrelevant. And if we act consciously, we will live in the enhanced age where technology enhances the human condition. Human beings become superhuman and we become superior and we tame the machines. Um, and I can tell you, I don't want to live in an artificial age. I want to live in an enhanced age. And I see that as my ultimate job to bring into life the 10th age of mankind. And that is what will be engraved on my tombstone, because I believe that will be the greatest gift that I could ever give to humanity.
And like speaking about that, of course, like there needs to be many breakthroughs in terms of health and technology, and I think you can guide the direction alongside with many others that are, contributing to this from different aspects and elements. Are there any things that you feel like we should stay away from, or you are basically saying that we should try every single thing for us to be able to get to that point that we really take the health, longevity, and the enhancements, how we blend the human body with all the technology out there
Yeah,
into
well,
the
I think
equation,
we have to do everything we can because we are in competition with the machines now, right? And it's hard for most people to process how much progress has been made in artificial intelligence. But effectively, all the energy that will ever be produced on this planet will be used to power data centers, to power artificial intelligence. And, um, I spent years writing a PhD. I spent years at the finance law school in the world. And now that education is irrelevant because a machine can do that job better than I can. And so we're going to see massive structural change in our society in the next few years. And the reality is that artificial intelligence is largely unregulated, and therefore immense amounts of capital is flowing into research and development there. On the other hand, heavy-handed regulation in biotechnology and pharmaceutical research means the process of innovation is much, much slower. And so comparatively little investment is happening on the biotechnology side. But I don't think it's going to require major investment because it's only going to take one breakthrough. And I think about Ozempic and the GLP-1 drugs. One breakthrough equals $1 trillion in market value, and obesity is going to be cured, right? So think about that. In the next 20 years, particularly when Ozempic goes off patent, the idea of obesity will no longer exist, right? We will not have obese people in our society, and probably what the greatest public health scourge of the 20th century will be eliminated. And in the same way, I think when we have a FDA approved, patented next generation anabolic steroid, where you don't have to go to the gym for 20 hours a week, you don't have to eat chicken and broccoli off a scale to look like an Adonis-like superhero, um, billions of men will take that, and it will be a multi-trillion-dollar market.
what do you think this will do with the perception of the ideal body in terms of like, will everyone look alike, or uh, what will be then people chasing if suddenly everything is available to them? Because in the end, like, we all need to
Yeah,
feel somewhat unique,
yeah, that's a really interesting philosophical question. So if you look at in the Middle Ages, a fat body was very desirable because food was scarce, and
right?
a fat
It
body
was
was a status
you
symbol.
were showing that you have plenty of resources,
Exactly. And so then um, Coco Chanel really like changes that idea. She invented the idea of the tan. And only in the 20th century does the idea of being slender and fit have high social status because it showed you have plenty of leisure time, you have plenty of time to go to the gym. And so, what does it mean if, on the one hand, the democratization of GLP-1 drugs eliminates obesity, and on the other hand, the rise of pharmacological performance enhancements means that the fit tone body is more accessible. I think the net conclusion of that is sort of like transhumanism, that maybe actually we want to be taller. Maybe we want to look different. We can surgically modify ourselves in different ways, and that why do we even have to look human? And actually, if you presented the average, or not maybe not an average person, but an extraordinary person today to like a medieval peasant, they would look at Usain Bolt and say, "Wow, he looks like Hercules," right? They would think he was some sort of godlike figure. And so again, could we think about the superheroes of the sort of the Marvel universe? Well, if we could have rare and unique superpowers, how much would we pay for that? Well, a lot of money, right? And that creates financial incentives in the market, and something for which the resources of capitalism can be deployed at.
Well, don't you think that like right now, when you need to work really, really hard in the gym versus, and also like you need to, if you want to look fit, you need to follow, let's say, relatively strict healthy diet. It's also helping us to build strong foundation, maybe a little bit of resilience, dedication, etc. And suddenly, when that is at our disposal, without putting all of that effort in, um, isn't it gonna be creating, in a way, weaker people?
Yeah, so that's an
Or
interesting question. So
where shall we look for deploying our efforts to go
yeah,
beyond?
yeah, so that's an interesting question. So effectively, um, physical fitness also makes us morally fit, right? It teaches us discipline, teamwork, and other very important skills. Of course, having just pharmacological enhancements that make us stronger doesn't, by and large, reduce our our capabilities of using sport to teach us teamwork, right? Even if you have a team of superheroes, you still need to work together, right? And this is a common narrative among superhero comics is rivalries there. Um, and this is probably a more apt question in terms of artificial intelligence. We learn how to become moral humans by interacting with other human beings, and our moral compass is largely guided by our ability to collect and share resources. Artificial intelligence doesn't have a moral compass because it doesn't have the same kind of goals of status, right? So status is very important to animals, peacocks with large feathers, birds building grandiose nests, or human beings, getting Ferraris and Hermes handbags. Um, and this desire of status consumption is not something that is programmed into an AI. It would be very wasteful if an AI were to do that. And so, no matter how superhuman we become, no matter how capable we become through enhancement technologies, we will still want to show that we are um, of a higher status than other men in particular. Uh, and that is something I believe that's like a very hard coded into us as a society. And that desire to uh, uh, cultivate and capture resources, as well as showing that we're good citizens and family members who share resources, is intrinsic to us as human beings, and it will just manifest in different ways.
Previously, you mentioned that the AI race is largely unregulated at this point. Do you feel that there should be some sort of regulation coming into effect soon, or where does this end? And what is your take on artificial general intelligence, if you have any in particular?
Oh, well, I think the question is government better at regulating artificial intelligence than the private sector or the market? And I would say no. My view on government is to judge. I judge organizations based on their ability to deliver value, right? And if you can't do the small things, you can't do the big things. So I look at most governments, particularly in the United States or the United Kingdom, and I say, well, you can't fill in the potholes on the street. The lines at security at the airport are very long. It takes months to get a passport renewed. And you think that you can regulate artificial intelligence? You think that you can fix the weather, i.e., climate change? And I say no. You have to prove you can do the small things before you could ever claim that you could even do the big things. Versus, if the government of, let's say, Singapore had an idea of regulating artificial intelligence, so, well, their airport is very nice, their city is very clean, they don't have crime, they're run by very smart people. I would trust them a lot more. But if the US government, or God forbid, the British government or the French government said, we're so smart that we can regulate artificial intelligence, I'd say, if you were so smart, you would be able to clean the streets, and you can't do that. So you have not proven the trust of the public to do anything greater, and it will probably just end up, as it always does with government, a self-serving cartel to benefit the political class.
And do you think that the private sector is actually able to establish some sort of guardrails in terms of what to do and what not to do? Because otherwise it can uh, come out of hands quite easily.
Yeah, so why is it that all of the gains of the last, say, 30 or 40 years have been achieved by a very narrow class of private sector actors? So politicians can't do anything because they're stuck in this divisive 4-year political cycle. CEOs of public companies, the largest public companies in the world, can't do anything meaningful because they're stuck in a cycle of quarterly reporting capitalism. And so the only people who've been able to really make substantial change in the world are founder-led private companies backed by venture capital firms. And it's this like very, you're only talking about a few thousand people in the entire world, um, and most are incapable of delivering any change. And it's this very small group of people. And why is that? Is because venture capital firms understand how long it takes to build the future. OpenAI took 7 years before it generated revenue. I've built 10 companies. 7 of them weren't even remotely successful. 3 were like okay. Yet VCs, in particular people like Peter Thiel, keep backing me time and time again. And you don't get that anywhere else. And so I think this small group of VC-backed founders, um, uh, particularly based out of California, are better placed to judge technology than anyone else. And certainly, I don't think anyone in government has the capability to do so, because their incentives are very poor.
So you would basically just leave it up to the open market to navigate itself, because like I totally understand that there is a handful of individuals and they have made an immense impact just in the past few decades. If we look at what we have at our disposal when it comes to self-driving cars, artificial intelligence, etc., it's insane. And you are 100% right that there are uh, few people in particular that are moving the needle big time. I'm just wondering if the power is not gonna be if the power is not becoming way too concentrated in one particular area or on
Well,
one particular person.
if you want to be part of that power circle, you can do it very easily, right? Like I wasn't born into it. No one was born into it. You just literally have to like move to San Francisco and apply to Y Combinator. It's pretty easy, actually. It's a very open and democratic system. It's much easier to become like a Y Combinator founder than it is to become like a U.S. senator. And at the end of the day, you only need to compare the European attitude, which is regulate, versus the American attitude, which is innovate. And it's pretty obvious. 20 years ago, uh, Europe and the United States both accounted for about 25% of global GDP. Today, the US still accounts for about 25% of global GDP, but Europe is down to less than 15% now. Why is that? Is it because they bet against the internet? They bet against social media with GDPR. Now they're fighting artificial intelligence with Ursula von der Leyen's AI Act. And now, Europe will just get poorer and poorer. The largest company in Europe, Novo Nordisk and SAP, both have a market capitalization of around $400 billion. The largest company in America, Nvidia, has a market capitalization of $1 trillion. There are 13 companies now worth more than $1 trillion, and all of them are American.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly shows the power of the market. I totally agree, and like the support towards pushing the innovation further.
Yeah, and
Uh,
innovators will always move to where there is the least friction, and Europe has chosen to regulate. And I've said this to European public policymakers time and time again. I gave a speech in the British Parliament 2 years ago. I was speaking to the senior members of the Swiss government just last week about this, and I keep telling them, human enhancement is going to be the largest economic driver in human history, and it's a very small ecosystem today, and it's going to be won by a very small group of people. And if Europe keeps betting against technology, that whole industry is going to end up in the United States. And the proof is in the pudding. In Europe, governments were hostile to the enhanced games. In America, President Trump and his family invested in the company. And that's why we're based in the US.
what was your path to basically get to a point that you are trying to compete in probably one of the most competitive and difficult segments of the market? Because I think, especially when it comes to health and longevity, it's a trend that is extremely booming right now. And what was the path that I think that you think set you up for being able to go into it in full swing?
Well, I always would say that, I love this quote from Spinoza, which is that all things that are virtuous are difficult. Uh, there's nothing that is virtuous in life that is easy, right? It's easy to, eat a donut. It's hard to go to the gym. And that's why going to the gym creates virtuous human beings. Um, and, I've sold 3 companies. I have a beautiful life. I could be sitting in, my home in London and with a Ferrari in the garage, my new husband. And as my mother says, she says, Aaron, why do you work so hard? And why do I work so hard is because I believe what we are doing is virtuous. It's not like going to work for, DocuSign or SAP or Oracle. Like, why would you dedicate your life to, making, enterprise software, right? There are very few companies worth dedicating a life to. And I think, Elon and Tesla have done this, make humans interplanetary. My friend Sam Altman did it with OpenAI, make artificial general intelligence. And, we're doing it here at the Enhanced Games and to make superhumans, make more superhumans. And that's something worth dedicating a life to. And there are very few other employments that are truly callings. And that's why I'm doing this. And what has set me up to do this? Well, I founded 10 companies. I've been doing this for 20 years, vast networks and all compounding. And, I'm 40 years old now, and I feel like this is my main character moment to do something that really has impact in the world, right? To make another $100 million doesn't matter to me, right? And what matters is do something that really improves the human condition. And that's why I admire people like Brian Johnson so much. Brian is doing something unbelievably courageous, like challenging death as a notion. He sold a company for $800 million. He's one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the world. Yet he comes to work every day, pushing himself to the limit, experimenting on himself because he's trying to really push the thresholds of humanity. And I think there are actually very few people who do this, right? In the category of Elon, Sam, myself, like there might be only 20 or 30 people in the whole world who are building companies that have a true mission that will fundamentally improve the world. Like, DocuSign and SAP, they don't do it, right? Uh, and here we have something very, very powerful that will improve the human condition.
It is something that is very much resonating with me because I feel like I also prefer the hard work rather than the shortcuts, because I know that in the long run it builds character. And like, of course, like if you can achieve some of the things faster, it's smart to be leveraging those options. But at the same time, I just have a great feeling of being able to put the work in and seeing the results on the flip side. And it's not really about like now I made this successful moment and I can just enjoy, but I think it only drives you to go further and further and further. And I would just love to understand how, like, since when was the idea cooking in your head? Because you have made the announcement and started really working on it roughly 2 years ago, if I know correctly. But I assume that it's a combination of many factors and deep thinking for a lot longer than that.
Yeah, well, I probably have more than 50 business plans that are sitting, waiting, in the works in some dimension or another. Some of them were far too early. Like I predicted the rise of AI-driven CRM databases 15 years ago. I wrote a business plan for it. It was too early. And I just pulled that out and handed it to a friend the other day. So the enhanced games, well, I always say it's not my idea. Like the most eminent philosophers, bioethicists, and scientists have all postulated this, but they were unable to translate it into reality. And I think the special skill that I bring is not in the idea generation. It's in the operational skill. And so I believe that social change only happens when someone puts a suit on and goes to work every day trying to solve a problem. And there was no one who was trying to make human enhancement normal until I came along. And of course, creating a business model behind it, raising the initial capital, all of it's very hard. But that dedication and desire to steward an entire sector of human endeavor is rare, right? And so, I think about Nigel Farage. One might disagree with his politics, but I met him for the first time in 2009. So this is long before the term Brexit ever came to be. And he was the first person who, not to say that Britain should leave the European Union, but to make it his job. And I remember him showing up to give a talk in his sort of crappy little car, holding a cardboard box filled with pamphlets. And it was his mission in life for Britain to leave the European Union. And he organized the UKIP party. He brought Brexit into a referendum, and he has had a bigger impact, whether you like it or not, on the nature of British public life than anyone since Margaret Thatcher. And he's probably going to be the next prime minister of this country. And it all started with a guy literally printing out some flyers at home and putting them into a cardboard box and talking to anyone who would listen to him. And imagine the courage that takes. And so, maybe to loop back to your previous question, what could be the greatest enhancement that we could create? Is a physical enhancement to make us stronger? Is it a neurological enhancement to make us smarter, or is it a pharmacological one to give us faster reaction times? No, I think it's actually how can we motivate? How could we enhance people to have greater motivation? Right? Think about the first time you ever went to the gym. You're so scared. You're like, oh, am I? Why? It's hard to think even why one would be scared, but so many people have such apprehension about taking that first step. And generally, for the average person, the thing that they fear the most is public speaking, right? That's a fear of rejection, a fear of failure, and these deep-seated fears that we have within us. Maybe there's a pharmacological solution for that. And it's that simple question of motivation. There are some people who are motivated and some people that are not. And I have students in particular who come to ask my advice, my career advice all the time. And they ask, how do I become great? And um,
I
and
would
I say,
love to
well,
learn
it's
that.
all,
I would love to learn that too.
yeah, sure. Well, and the answer is actually remarkably simple. There are many strategies to becoming great. Um, and uh, uh, and it comes down to just a very simple question. Um, do you want to lead an ordinary life, or do you want to lead an extraordinary life? And most people will say, oh, I want the extraordinary life. I want the mansions, the boats, the yachts, the jets, whatever. Um, and then I say to them, well, are you willing to make extraordinary sacrifices for the extraordinary life? And those sacrifices mean, you don't work 9 to 5, you work 24/7. You have to sacrifice your family, your friends. You have to, sometimes sacrifice your reputation on something you believe very strongly in that many will disagree with you about. And then in time, you will get extraordinary results. But for most people, they're unwilling to make those extraordinary sacrifices and they just want to take the easy path. And so that's the question I always ask potential employees. Like, are you willing to make extraordinary sacrifices? Because those that do get extraordinary outcomes. And it was a line from Brendan Spice, is one of my early interns. He said, um, from extreme places are made extreme people who get extreme results. And, he could be talking about an axe murderer as much as a, billionaire entrepreneur. But it takes that desire to do something extreme, to do something extraordinary. And for most, it's just very hard to take that first step.
Is that your number one interview question? If they are willing to go the extraordinary way?
No,
Or are you looking for any other traits?
I actually think a verbal interview is actually not a very good way to select employees. So of course we do meet people in person, we talk with them, but we are looking for individuals who are fanatical about what we do, who see it as their life's mission to make the enhanced games a reality and bring the enhanced age into existence. So generally, those are people who have like listened to every single podcast that I've ever done. They've read every news article. They've consumed every shred of information and are extremely knowledgeable about our business model. So that's like the base knowledge. Then those who have taken that knowledge and then can contribute something new and innovative that we previously haven't seen, that's a very good sign. But the thing that we always do is we say, don't talk about your ideas, write about your ideas. I feel that this is a much better way to select because there are some people who are maybe not as confident verbal communicators, or that there are some people who are such great salespeople. But when you say, take your ideas, take your words, and put them pen to paper and write about them, this is where you can tell the men from the boys. Because, there are some people who have glittering CVs. They went to Harvard, they worked at KKR, and you ask them to, write a slide deck explaining, what they'll do in the first 90 days of their job, and they write, a dog's breakfast. And it's just, writing skills, even in the era of ChatGPT, are still really, really ineffective among most people.
How far along are you with planning the Las Vegas event, and how much can you mention about it right now? Now I'm putting my athlete hat on, as someone who potentially would like to take part. What are the pieces of information that we have as of today?
Yeah, so it'll be track, swimming, and weightlifting, all in sprint distance events. There'll be a $500,000 prize pool for every category of competition, plus $1 million for the major world records. You can see on our website the many athletes we've already signed. We're in the process of signing even more. And it stands to be an extraordinary competition where I think we will break all the major world records. And so we've, as you said at the outset of the show, we've already broken the 50 freestyle world record by Christian Golomev. And I think all we need to do next is break Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record, and then we're the fastest sporting event in the world. And I always say this: no one watches F2, everyone watches F1. No one watches minor league ball, everyone watches major league ball. Why? Because as human beings, we're only interested in watching um, the very best of human competition. And the Olympics are that now. But what happens when, the fastest runners, the fastest swimmers, the best weightlifters in the world are actually at the enhanced games? it changes the entire nature of sporting competitions and the entire structure of our society.
As it's a competition, it needs to have some rules, of course. Is there anything that you feel like should not be allowed and will not be part of it? Where's the line that you draw in terms of what is fit with enhanced games and what needs to stay out of it?
Well, so right now, all the pharmaceutical enhancements that an athlete wishes to take, they can take as long as they are legal and doctor prescribed in their country of origin. And this is important because I believe this will create competition between nations. Because if America and England are doing really well at the enhanced games, but a country like Australia, which prides itself on its athletic prowess, is doing really poorly, the Australian public's going to say, "Why aren't we winning enough gold medals?" And it's going to be because Australia has very regressive laws on enhancement, as does France, but Italy has great ones. And so, um, we look at the tally of Nobel Prize winners as a proxy of the scientific progress of a nation, but there aren't very many Nobel Prize winners a year. But imagine that, we're doling out hundreds of gold medals at every game, and we say, well, what countries are doing well? It's because they are scientifically advanced. And it's like if we had an AI race today, right, the best AI robots running, it's not going to be one from the European Union, right? Because the EU has all this crappy technology, right? The AIs that are going to win are going to be Chinese or American, right? And that's going to be a strong sign of the industrial might of a nation. And competition between nations is very powerful, right? Look at the space race as consuming 10% of global GDP at its peak, just as a way of aggrandizing the egos of Brezhnev and Kennedy.
As you are fully immersed into this trend of building our future, I only wonder what are the things that you incorporate into your routines, into your daily habits, into staying sharp, consistent, etc. Are there any things that you picked up yourself?
Yeah, so this is where Brian Johnson and I are very different. So Brian is experimenting on himself. He is the experiment. He is the product. I'm not trying to break the 100-meter world record here. I am literally just a CEO. And so how do I improve myself? Well, it's like very simple. I don't travel. Right? No matter what, I don't travel. Like unless there's like a Gulfstream 650 to take me somewhere, I don't go. And so that's why I live in New York City, because everyone who matters in global capitalism comes to New York City. And jet lag, falling out of routine, it's very detrimental to your health and putting your cognitive capabilities. So I stay at home as much as I can. I have a home in London, so I go back. If I go anywhere, I come to London. But I basically never go anywhere where I can't sleep in my own bed. And so even when I make a trip to speak with like world leaders, I generally go only for the day, and then I come back to one of my homes. I get 8 to 9 hours of sleep every day. I exercise every day. I stretch for over an hour every day. And being physically well is an essential component of my success. But also, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't drank caffeine for more than 20 years. Um, and all of these are small compounding factors. But the number one thing is travel, right? Somehow, millennials have glorified travel. They think it is the ultimate expression of free will and knowledge and education. And I think travel is the new smoking. Like, who wants to like sit in seat 32F on Ryanair and be delayed for like 5 hours on the tarmac at Stansted? I'd rather be at home.
I just came off a crazy week of travel and had a chance to spend the weekend home to kind of get back to my rhythm. And I definitely agree with you that especially changing time zones, sleeping in different places, it can definitely throw you off. And the more of that you do, I think the bigger the impact. Are there any cognitive enhancements that you have tried on yourself? Because that's one of the things that can definitely help you in the CEO role, outside of you not really caring that much, and not that you would not care, but it's not your highest priority to look at the fitness side of things.
Yeah, well, I'm very proud that when I like take my 22-year-old interns to Barry's boot camp, I run faster than them, and despite the fact I'm twice their age. Um, and we have plenty of like D1 runners and swimmers who intern in our office, so it still makes me very proud. Um, the one enhancement that I've used that I think is really effective is an IV drip. Um, and I was talking to a journalist from the Times of London about this. So it's like every time I land off a long haul flight, when I have to do it, first thing I do is I go to Harrods department store, the famous department store here in London, and I get an IV drip. I've been doing that for years, and it turns out that actually an IV drip is a banned procedure under the World Anti-Doping Code because it's a very effective masking agent and help flush out your system of any banned substances being used, and you can get it at the world's fanciest department store. And I think I find it a very, very effective way to improve my health. But at the end of the day, I don't need to be any smarter, right? It's like this isn't a challenge of like raw intelligence. It's not like I'm computing particle physics equations. Like building the enhanced games is a really very simple business. The philosophy is well proven out, etc. And so what do I need to do? I'm more of an endurance athlete. If I can operate at my current mental capabilities for 10, 20 more years while still, working this hard and operating this business, I think we're going to be immensely successful. We're going to have a multi-trillion dollar listed company. We're going to impact the trajectory of humanity. We're going to break every world record. We're going to change the economic structure of sports. And we're going to have a lot of fun while we do it.
Is there an IV drip of choice that you go for every time?
I just I go for like the blended option. Even, my if you really want to talk about cognitive enhancements, you should talk to my co-founder, Christian Angermeyer, German billionaire, world's largest investor in psychedelics. And he's got a whole cocktail of enhancements that keep him going. And I must say he is very impressive. Like I will, we'll sometimes, take a intercontinental flight together and I will just be wrecked. And he'll have some concoction of pills that he takes, and he's right back at it, working hard, and I'm like having a nap and jet lag. So, maybe I could be better. But yeah, the Christian knows the recipes really well, a lot better than I do.
Seems like him and I could get along pretty well.
Yeah.
Um, is there a last piece of wisdom or thought that you would like to share with people that are tuning in to the podcast?
Um, Dedicate your life to something meaningful. Uh, I think that's the only thing we need to do as human beings. You know, for my father, it was being a scientist and discovering new treatments for disease. For my mother, it was raising three, hopefully wonderful children. And for me, it's to bring the next age of mankind into existence and be a guardian of human civilization. Um, and finding that purpose is probably the most important thing you can do. And then once you find it, dedicate all your energy to it. and go all in because excellence is the only thing worth waking up for in the morning. It's not worth it to dedicate your whole life to making more money and just wanting to buy expensive clothes and watches and cars. Those things are nice to have, but they don't really fulfill you. The thing that fulfills you is having a purpose and making an impact that improves lives for others.
Well, Aaron, thank you so much for walking me through all things Enhanced Games. I hope that I'll have a chance to join as most likely as a spectator, not competing just yet. But it seems like you'll be putting on a great show, and you are on a very, very valuable mission. And I'll definitely stay tuned to that. And I wish you the best of luck. But I don't think that you don't need any luck because it's all about putting in the work, and that's what you are doing.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation. Have a lovely day.